The Book Essence Podcast. Episode 5. Bitcoin Billionaires.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we're going deep on Bitcoin, but not just Bitcoin as a concept, We're looking at it through the fascinating story of the Winklevoss twins
Yes.
and their journey to becoming Bitcoin billionaires. You probably know them from that big legal fight with Mark Zuckerberg, the whole Facebook origin story.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a modern day David and Goliath, right?
Exactly. But what's even more interesting to me is what happened after. Like, how did they go from that huge public legal battle to being, like, major players in this whole crypto revolution? I mean, they were Olympic rowers.
Right.
They ended up at the forefront of the Bitcoin boom. It's pretty wild.
Yeah. Talk about resilience, right? Seeing the trends and capitalizing on them. A lot of people missed that boat.
Totally. Okay, so to get into this, our deep dive today is based on the book Bitcoin Billionaires, which really chronicles their rise in the world of cryptocurrency.
A great book. Really lays it all out, starting with that pivotal moment in the first chapter, their intense mediation with Zuckerberg. I think that really set the stage for their mindset going into Bitcoin.
Yeah, that part was so crazy. It takes us back to 2008, a tense corporate office in San Francisco. The twins and their lawyer are waiting, hoping for a fair resolution with Zuckerberg. You really get a sense of this long, drawn-out negotiation process.
Oh, it was a total battle of attrition for sure. Both sides just trying to wear the other down.
And then there's that detail about Zuckerberg's team, right? They're claiming security concerns as the reason they can't meet face-to-face with the twins. It's like, come on, really?
Yeah, you can feel the animosity there, the paranoia, and then boom, the chapter ends with this huge reveal. Zuckerberg's privately planning to outmaneuver the twins, even though there's an agreement.
What? Wow. Talk about a slap in the face. So they had this settlement, but like they're not happy, right? There's this lingering feeling of being cheated, which gets even stronger in Chapter 2, Dead in the Water.
Man, that title is so good. You open with them facing defeat again, this time in a rowing race. Their Olympic dreams are crushed. Such a powerful parallel to their loss in the courtroom.
Yeah, it's like one blow after another. In the legal battle, they walked away with $65 million, cash, and Facebook stock.
Right.
But it's hollow, not the win they'd hoped for.
And then later, those instant messages from Zuckerberg get leaked. You see his deliberate deception in the negotiations. And get this, they also uncover that Facebook manipulated its stock valuation. They basically devalued the settlement.
It's like they got robbed.
Pretty much.
And to make matters worse, there's public humiliation.
Yeah.
I mean, the book even quotes Larry Summers, the former president of Harvard.
Yeah.
He didn't have kind words for them.
Not at all. It was pretty brutal.
Oof, that's tough. So they're left with this settlement that feels more like a consolation prize in a public image that's, not great.
Understatement.
Chapter 3 is Damaged Goods, and it really explores how they try to move on. What do they do next?
So they take their settlement money and start their own venture capital firm, Winklevoss Capital. But here's the interesting part. They choose New York City, not Silicon Valley.
Why do you think they did that?
They wanted to get away from the Facebook drama, create a fresh start.
Yeah, but even with a new city, a new venture, it's not easy for them. They're seen as damaged goods, right? Like, some people in tech are hesitant to work with them because of the Facebook lawsuit.
That reputation follows them everywhere, but what's key here is their drive. They want to prove themselves to be more than just the Facebook twins.
So they have this ambition, this need to build something new and lasting. And it seems like a chance encounter at a tech conference in Miami, that's Chapter 4, Miami Vice, becomes this turning point. Can you paint us a picture of that scene?
So imagine this, a high-profile tech conference, tons of energy, everyone's talking about the latest innovations, the twins are there, trying to navigate it all, still seen as outsiders, and they run into a group of, you guessed it, Bitcoin enthusiasts.
Wow, so we're talking about the very early days of Bitcoin. This is when it was, like, super niche, right?
Exactly. This is back when Bitcoin was just associated with hackers and the dark web.
So it's funny to picture the twins just coming out of a battle with this tech giant, now being introduced to this completely new and unknown world of cryptocurrency.
Right.
What was their initial reaction to Bitcoin? Were they, like, immediately on board?
Not really. They were skeptical at first, like most people were. They had concerns about its connection to illegal activities, the lack of mainstream acceptance, all valid concerns at that time.
Makes sense, especially after what they went through with Facebook.
Right.
So what changed their minds? What made them think, hey, maybe there's something to this Bitcoin thing?
Well, as they dug deeper, they started seeing parallels to their own experience with Facebook. Both were initially dismissed, seen as fringe movements with little chance of success, but they had seen firsthand how fast things can change.
That's true. They had that unique perspective. So they saw the potential in Bitcoin, the potential that others were missing. But what was it specifically about Bitcoin that resonated with them?
I think the decentralized nature of it was a huge draw, especially after what they went through with Facebook, that centralized control, the manipulation. Bitcoin was this system outside the control of banks and governments,
Right.
and that was really appealing to them.
Like they were drawn to a financial system that was more egalitarian, less susceptible to power plays.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so they're intrigued, but it's still the Wild West out there in the crypto world, which is the perfect title for Chapter 5.
Yeah.
The Wild West. What was the landscape like back then?
Oh man, chaos, pure chaos. It was a digital gold rush. Libertarian idealists, tech enthusiasts, and just a ton of people trying to get rich quick.
It's kind of like the early days of the internet.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Very few rules, and the market was so volatile, all driven by speculation.
And then, of course, you had Mt. Gox.
Oh yeah, how could we forget Mt. Gox?
The biggest exchange at the time collapses, millions of dollars in Bitcoin, gone. It was a disaster.
It was a huge reminder of the risks, but it didn't scare the twins off. They saw it as a challenge. They started buying up tons of Bitcoin, but they weren't just trading it quickly like most people. They had a long-term strategy.
They were going all in on Bitcoin.
They were betting on the future, believing it would become a major asset.
That takes us to Chapter 6, Masters of Their Own Universe, where they go from being enthusiasts to active participants in the Bitcoin world. What did they do to, solidify their position?
They realized that for Bitcoin to succeed, it needed to be seen as legitimate, not just a toy for techies or a tool for criminals. It had to be a safe and reliable store of value.
So they needed to change the story around Bitcoin. How did they approach that?
They started talking about Bitcoin as gold 2.0. They argued that Bitcoin was a store of value like gold, but with advantages, being digital, easy to transfer, and scarce.
Smart. They're connecting it to something people already understand and respect. But they also did more than just talk. They took concrete steps to secure their own Bitcoin holdings, right?
Oh, yeah. They developed this sophisticated offline storage system, cold storage, to protect their Bitcoin from the dangers of online exchanges.
So they were putting their money where their mouth was, demonstrating their belief in Bitcoin by putting their own wealth on the line. But they also knew mainstream acceptance wouldn't be a walk in the park. What kind of pushback were they facing?
Oh, lots. Traditional financial institutions, regulators. They weren't happy. They saw Bitcoin as this threat, called it a speculative bubble.
Sounds like they were up against some powerful forces. How did they deal with that resistance?
Education, mostly. They engaged with regulators, explained the benefits of Bitcoin and blockchain. They also started working on ways to make Bitcoin easier for everyday investors to access.
It seems like they were playing the long game, trying to change perceptions one step at a time.
They were, and it's just the beginning.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Before the break, we were talking about the twins getting into Bitcoin, seeing its potential when most people didn't. They were buying it, storing it offline, and even crafting that whole Bitcoin is gold 2.0 narrative. But things get really interesting in Chapter 7, The American Dream, where they kind of go deeper into the philosophy behind Bitcoin.
Yeah, they really get into the ideology here, the appeal of financial independence, being free from those big institutions, which, after their Facebook experience, you can see why they'd be drawn to that.
Oh, yeah, totally. So it wasn't just about making money for them. It was like a way to change things.
Right.
Right? A new kind of American dream, but for the digital age.
Exactly. It was about empowering individuals, leveling the playing field.
But even though they believed in Bitcoin, they were still up against the whole financial establishment. Chapter 8 is the enemy of my enemy, and that's where we see this tension really come to a head.
Yeah, you've got guys like Jamie Dimon, the CEO at JP Morgan, right?
Yeah.
He's publicly saying Bitcoin's going to crash, comparing it to all these historical bubbles. It's like classic when the old guard just doesn't get it.
They just can't see the potential.
Nope.
But the twins didn't back down, and they actually found allies in some unexpected places.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Libertarians, tech communities, anyone who saw Bitcoin as a way to challenge the system, It's a pretty diverse group, all united by this idea.
It's wild, this weird coalition brought together by Bitcoin.
Right.
And while all this is going on, their wealth is growing like crazy.
Oh, yeah. This is when they're becoming some of the first Bitcoin billionaires. But for them, it wasn't just about the money. They wanted to make Bitcoin mainstream, and they knew that meant regulation.
So they're engaging with the SEC, trying to get a Bitcoin ETF approved, which, to be fair, was kind of controversial within the crypto community, right?
Yeah, some people saw it as a betrayal, like giving in to the system. The whole cypherpunk philosophy behind Bitcoin was about distrusting authority, operating outside the system.
So they're walking a tightrope here, balancing these competing ideals. Did it work? Was this the right move?
Well, it was a long road, lots of challenges. Chapter 9, Masters of Bitcoin, is where we see it all come together. They launched their own cryptocurrency exchange, Gemini, which was built differently. Security, compliance, all that stuff.
Right, because back then the crypto world was still kind of the Wild West with all these shady exchanges.
Exactly. Gemini was like, okay, we're going to do this the right way. They wanted to meet Wall Street standards, make it appealing to institutional investors.
So they're bringing Wall Street to the crypto world.
Yeah.
But you said some people in the crypto community weren't happy about that.
Oh, yeah. They saw it as selling out, centralizing something that was supposed to be decentralized. But the twins believed that for Bitcoin to really succeed, it needed regulation.
It's like they're trying to find this balance, right? Make Bitcoin accessible without compromising what makes it special.
Exactly. And their challenges continue as they try to get Bitcoin accepted by the traditional financial system.
Which is where Chapter 10 comes in, the Wall Street test. They're facing so much resistance from Wall Street, from regulators.
It's this clash of old and new. You have guys like Jamie Dimon and Warren Buffett, huge figures in finance, just trashing Bitcoin, calling it a fad, a bubble.
That must have been frustrating, being dismissed by people they probably respected. How did they handle it?
They just kept pushing, kept believing in Bitcoin. A key part of their strategy was getting that Bitcoin ETF, which would open the doors for institutional investors.
But the SEC kept saying no, right? What were their concerns?
Market manipulation, volatility, investor protection, all valid concerns, to be fair. The twins argued that an ETF would actually solve some of those problems, bring more transparency to the market.
That's like a catch-22.
Totally.
But while all this regulatory stuff is going on, public opinion is starting to change.
Ah.
Chapter 11 is The Revenge of the Nerds, and it really shows how Bitcoin was becoming harder to ignore. The media was starting to take it seriously.
The narrative was changing.
The nerds who had been into Bitcoin from the beginning were finally being vindicated.
Exactly. And now, the venture capitalists who wouldn't give the twins the time of day, they're suddenly all about crypto.
Oh yeah, the tables have turned.
Big time. Even Wall Street is starting to get on board, like JP Morgan, Jamie Dimon's bank. They're now offering crypto services.
Oh wow, that's a full circle moment.
Right. It's proof that Bitcoin's going mainstream. Even the skeptics are coming around. And the twins, they're at the forefront of it all. They're officially Bitcoin billionaires now.
It's really a story about persistence, about having vision when others don't.
And taking risks and sticking to your beliefs even when everyone doubts you.
But the story isn't over, is it?
Not even close.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So we've been talking about the Winklevoss twins, their journey from like the Facebook lawsuit to becoming these Bitcoin pioneers. And in the last part, we saw them gaining acceptance, but still facing resistance from traditional finance, right?
Exactly. They were trying to bridge these two worlds, the old and the new.
And then Chapter 12, the Cryptonation, comes along. And it's like the story explodes outward. It's not just about them anymore. It's about this whole global community.
Yeah, the book does a great job capturing that energy. The crypto culture was growing so fast. Conferences were packed.
With all kinds of people, not just tech people, right?
Right. Artists, musicians, entrepreneurs, all drawn to this idea of a decentralized future.
It's amazing how they captured that feeling, that sense of possibility. But, I mean, with growth comes challenges, especially with regulations.
Yeah.
The book talks about how different countries were reacting to crypto, some embracing it, some cracking down.
Yeah, it was a total mixed bag, a real regulatory maze, and the U.S. was kind of stuck in the middle trying to figure out what to do.
So where did the twins fit into all this?
Well, they were still committed to working within the system. You know, they believed in compliance, in regulation. They thought that was the path to legitimacy, to mainstream adoption.
Even though they were, like, disruptors at heart.
Yeah, which is interesting, right? It put them at odds with some people in the crypto community, the hardcore libertarians who wanted to stay completely outside the system.
So the twins are walking this tightrope, trying to make Bitcoin mainstream without losing its decentralized spirit. Was it the right approach? I mean, it was risky.
Definitely risky. And then in Chapter 13, the final boss, everything comes to a head. Bitcoin is booming, hitting new highs, and now the regulators are really paying attention.
The stakes are higher than ever.
Oh, yeah. This is their biggest test, proving that Bitcoin is here to stay. And the SEC is their main obstacle. They keep getting rejected for a Bitcoin ETF.
So it's like the twins versus this huge bureaucracy.
Totally. Classic David and Goliath. The SEC is worried about manipulation, investor protection, all legitimate concerns. But the twins are arguing that an ETF would actually solve some of those problems, make the market more transparent.
It's tough trying to fit this new technology into this old system.
For sure. But something interesting happens around this time. The media starts portraying the twins differently. They're not seen as those Facebook guys anymore. Now they're visionaries, the ones who saw the potential of Bitcoin before everyone else.
They've earned some respect.
Yeah, their persistence paid off. And then you get this incredible validation from Wall Street.
Like they're finally being taken seriously by the establishment.
Big time. Remember Jamie Dimon, the guy who called Bitcoin a fraud? Well, now JP Morgan, his bank, they're offering crypto services.
Wow, that's amazing. Talk about a change of heart.
Right. It's proof that Bitcoin is winning. Even the skeptics are coming around. And the twins, they're leading the charge.
So their story is this amazing example of like having a vision, sticking with it, and ultimately changing the world, right?
Yeah, and it's not over yet. Chapter 14, the Bitcoin billionaires, they finally reached the top. Their investment made them billionaires. But they don't stop there.
Of course not. What do they do?
Gemini, their exchange, it's doing really well, attracting big investors. They're investing in Ethereum and all these new decentralized finance projects. They want to shape the future of this technology.
So what's the takeaway from all this? What can we learn from Bitcoin billionaires?
I think it's about being adaptable, seeing the changes coming and adjusting. It's about having a long-term vision, taking risks, and staying true to your beliefs, even when it's hard.
It's about challenging the system, not accepting the way things are just because that's how it's always been.
And for the listener at home, I think the biggest takeaway is to stay curious, stay engaged. The world is changing fast, and the Winklevoss twins show us that anything is possible.
That's it for our deep dive into Bitcoin billionaires. It's an incredible story, and it's just the beginning. Thanks for listening, everyone.